Welcome to the Startup Grind.
We have with us Varun from Corporate 360. Corporate 360 was founded in 2012 in Singapore. Varun is a professional football player and a self-taught software professional who is now a self-made entrepreneur. We're very happy to have you here. And Corporate 360 is a big data software company that deals with B2B marketing and helps clients identify their ideal customers, do competitive intelligence, and discover sales leads. In 2015, Corporate 360's product Prospect Hour won the prestigious TV Awards for the Sales and Customer Service Award for the Best Product. And we're very happy to have you here. Please welcome Varun Chandran of Corporate 360. So Varun, from a football player to a software professional to an entrepreneur. So how did you become an entrepreneur? What motivated you to become an entrepreneur?
Thank you for having me here. My story, it's not the typical next door type story. It's slightly different. I was born in a small farming village in a place called Padam. About 400 families lived there. My father was a headload worker. My mom did odd jobs. She ran a small grocery shop. So we grew up in a very close-knitted community, which was totally disconnected from the mainstream towns and cities, where we all worked really hard to make a living. Right, my parents, my people from my neighborhood, they all worked really hard in the forest, doing log working and headload working, all of that. So I was privileged to be born in that kind of a family environment because I learned the hardship in life while I was growing up. The key thing was we all become ambitious based on the environment that we are exposed to. So I grew up watching my dad sitting on top of this truck and with full load of logs and going and coming and all of that, and I began to build a dream out of it. I wanted to become like that. I wanted to become a headload worker. And then I started, as I grew up, I started getting more fascinated about trucks, these trucks that goes and comes. And I wanted to own a truck. I wanted to become a truck driver, right? So what I'm trying to say is the kind of ambitions that I began to develop, and I was really curious back then. And my mom read newspaper every day, and I had a grandfather who was a communist and who was he was very curious about what's happening outside the world, and he was always a guy who would think how to help others and how to help people advance in their lives. So there was a bit of an influence of that within my family. So the influence from my grandfather and my mom kind of helped me because they decided that their children should get education. So back in the days, the kids in our village would not get education because parents could not afford to send them to school. We didn't have proper school there.
Even convent schools?
We had a school which is up to 5th standard, and after that, they end the studies, they get into the woods and they start working or helping their families, or they start driving trucks or become an auto driver, things like that. That's the way it is. So my grandfather and my mother decided to send us to school, right? So I was really privileged. I was really lucky. So they would send us to a school which is 15 miles away from the village. And back then we didn't have bus service every day. So we used to walk. Sometimes, bus will get breakdown, and sometimes there will be a huge storm and trees would fall onto the road, bus cannot come. So we'll walk back, 15 miles. So it was a very interesting environment. In fact, I have a couple of guys who've come to, who worked with me back then. They've come to listen to this. So we had, so I go to the school, and then, I was put in an English medium school, and more than half of the days I was standing outside because my parents could not pay the fees. The teachers would ask me to get out and stand. You're not paying the fees, so that's a punishment. But I would still stand there. They would still allow me to watch what's being taught and things like that. I was kind of getting stimulated with the whole idea of education. And then coming from a village background, doing a lot of physical work, I began to pick up interest in sports. So I started performing in sports in that school. And then after the 5th standard, my mom put me in a boarding school in Pathanavaram, right? And that was a turning point in my life because there I met the physical education teacher, Babu Varghese, who is the brother of Indian national football player Matthew Varghese. So he was very much into building the school football team, and he brought me into the team, and I started playing for the football team, right? So from an ambition to become a truck driver or a head load worker, I wanted to now become a football player, because you can see the evolution, the change happening in my career, where I was exposed to a village life, and then I upgraded to a school life where there was sports, and I started playing serious football. I became the captain of my football team, and then we won the championship, and I was totally into it. I wanted to become a footballer. That was my ambition, right? I wanted to play for the Indian national team. I wanted to get a job, and I was into football, and the game taught me a lot of things, which we can talk about later. After 10th standard, I got into a sports scholarship because of my football career in my school. I captained my school. We won the championship. I got a scholarship. I moved to Trivandrum. So I came to Trivandrum with this centralized sports hostel under Kerala Sports Council. I joined MG College Trivandrum. In the next 5 years, I would stay in Central Stadium Trivandrum. Inside that, we have a hostel complex. I would study there. I would live there. I would train hard. I would become a footballer. I would go on playing for the youth, junior, and university football teams. I would captain the under-19 Kerala football team. In 2000, I would become the best junior footballer in Kerala. I got the G.V. Raja gold medal. And in 2001, I captained Kerala University football team. We became the champions in the InterVarsity Championship as well. So I had a good run. And during this 5 years of football career, I started traveling around India. Every year I get 5 to 6 trips to travel to play different football games, different championships. So during these trips, I would make friends with team members from other clubs, other state teams, from Delhi, from Punjab, from Himachal Pradesh. And during one of those trips, one of the guy that I met from the Delhi team would give me his email ID, and he would tell me to be in touch with him. And I didn't know what's an email ID back then, right? And I was totally shocked. And I asked him, "Aapka phone number kya hai?" You know, I could speak a little bit of Hindi because I've been traveling around and all of that. So he would insist that, no, it's best way to get in touch with me is email. So I come back to Kerala after that championship, and I would ask my roommate, "What's his email?" And I wouldn't know. And I was, I think, about 19 or 20 back then. So I would read about it, and then I would go to a cyber cafe, and I would try to find out what's this internet all about. And I became so curious about it. I started spending a lot of time in cyber cafes. So footballers get to play 7-a-side championship in Kerala. We go to Malabar area, we play, we make pocket money, we come back, and that's how we buy our dress, all of that. So I began to spend a lot of time in cyber cafe because I was really curious about internet, the possibilities that it offers. I began to read online, and then I created an email ID, and I got in touch with this guy. And that's how I started building some curiosity around internet and the external world. So from there, there was a lot of difficulties back at home. You know, I had
an injury.
Yeah, that's right. So after the 5th year, I was at final year in the college, and I was prepared to write the exams. Although we were not present in college all the time, I had a best friend, Ramesh. He was the captain, and we both go around and we go to tuition centers and we try to study and all of that, because the idea was to continue the education as well. Although we don't get much time to go into college all the time, so we go into a tournament, and I fell down in the pitch and I broke my shoulder, and there ended my career. It was a career-ending, terrible injury that happened. That should not have happened. I still feel sad about it because that ended my career. I could have stayed back a little longer to fix my injury, but then I didn't have enough money to go to hospital. I couldn't afford to go to hospital to get my shoulder fixed. And my parents couldn't afford either, and we had a lot of difficulties at home back then. So I would go around a little bit. I would go back home. I was lost. I spent 2 months back in my hometown moving around with my friends. I didn't know what to do. And then I would go see my grandmother, and I would tell her that, look, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. And she would ask me to get out from here, go somewhere, and go find your life. That's what she said. So I found an advertisement on newspaper that there is this call center jobs happening in Bangalore. So, and they were asking for graduates, and I was not a graduate then. The exams are still going on, and I would make an impulse decision to get out of college. So I would drop out. I would not write the exams. I would go see my grandma. I will tell her that I want to go, and she would give me her bangle, her gold bangle, and 3,000 rupees, which is the first seed fund that I've ever raised in my life. And she's the first investor that I met. And from there I started. So I'm so thankful to her. She would give that to me and ask me to get out. And I would come back, board a bus to Cochin, from there board a bus to Bangalore. And I had a friend there, who ran away from my village, the same village I was born. His name is Kaviraj. He would run a construction contractor job there. So I would call him up. I would tell him I want to go there, and I'm coming to look for a job. So he would put me into a dorm room where all the construction workers are living. So I would land there. I would live with them for the next 3 months. Every morning, these guys would get up and they go to their work site. I would buy some clothes. I would go look for jobs. After a couple of months, I realized that I'm not getting much opportunities. I'm not getting good interviews. I'm miserably failing in all the interviews because I couldn't speak a word in English back then. So some days I go work with these guys to keep it going. You know what I mean? And then I would still try, and I would attend about 42 interviews over a period of 3 months, and I would flunk. I would fail in all of them. And then towards the end of it, my bankle is gone. The 3,000 rupees is gone, and towards the end of it, I'm eating once a day. Things are getting really difficult. And I called my granddad. Right? I would call him up and I would tell him that this is happening. I'm not able to get through. He would tell me, look, read books. If you want to learn English, read books. Right? And he would recommend me to buy a dictionary. He would tell me to read this fantastic book, which first time ever I read, which is Communist Manifesto. That's the first book that I'm reading. I would read this. I would buy a dictionary. I would read this book. I would go to a library in Malleshwaram. I would keep reading. I would watch BBC and CNN. I would go to private corners. I would speak loud in English. I would start thinking in English. And by the time I attended about 40 interviews, I know all the questions, the patterns of questions. And I go to Google, and then I would learn all the best answers possible. I by heart the answers, and then I would do a little bit of practices that I could, right? And then I go for the interviews. And guess what happened? I got 2 jobs in a day, right? I cut the interview. I nail it. I get the job. I saw my shortcut, the smarter shortcut that I took worked out, and I realized that I got a job. I'm happy, but then within me, I'm still not confident because I'm not that used in speaking in English. And so I got the first job offer from AOL, both the call centers, and second was with Dell Computers. And I go read about both the companies, and then I liked Dell because of the story of Michael Dell. He came from Norway. He started in a garage. So it was really fascinating for me because I could relate myself to him, where I'm coming from, in a small village, born in a farming village. All of that background, I could really quickly connect with Michael Dell's story, and it was an inspiring thing for me, and I decided to pick up that job. So they would put you in a small training center first. The company will send you to a training center. I would go there. They would do an initial analysis of your ability, and they would mark me non-trainable because they'll make you, speak, give you a topic and a few number of things. And so I thought, I'm done. I'll be out. But I saw I'm getting a bit lucky because Dell badly needed people then, so they wouldn't fire me. They would think that I should continue with my training. So I would continue with the training, but I'm still not able to pick it up. I'm not able to do group discussions. I can't speak well. So I was really, really bad. And the last day we had an assessment. So I woke up at the same day. I was thinking whether I should go because I was not confident, and I wouldn't go for the assessment. I thought I'll go find a security job. So I would not go for the final assessment. I would go for another interview for a security job. And then I wouldn't get that job because I couldn't speak local language, Kannada. So I wouldn't get that job. I would come back. I got lucky. I got a call from Dell. Hey, why didn't you show up? And I would say, oh no, I couldn't come because I fell from the bike. I would make up a story. But they would say, that's still okay. You come to office and we want you to be here. And they put me through, and I got really lucky there. And that's how I started. But 3 months later, I got fired. I got in another job, I got fired. So I got fired from the first 3 jobs that I was at, primarily because I was not able to perform. I was not able to understand things properly because of the inability to communicate in English. So what I did was, during these breaks that I had between these 2-3 companies that I worked with, I started to get salary. And I used that money to go to a spoken English training center and a Java training center and start investing that money to educate myself. So about 9 months of between jobs, I was able to get some salary, and I went and studied. And the 4th job, I nailed it. 3 months later, I was sent off to US, and I never had to turn back. So that's how I began my career. The 4th job that I got into was a company that does SAP consulting. So I was ready. I was, I did all my hard work. I was ready, and I could speak. I was able to connect things. So I get this job, and I perform well, and I would go to US, and I would stay in Arizona for a while. I would come back to Bay Area for a while. I would perform well, and 3 years I worked with that company. I did well there. Then I go on to work with companies like some of the world's largest companies like SAP, Oracle, NetApp, some of these companies that I worked with. I started off as a consultant, then I got into pre-sales, I got into business development, I got into sales. So I was really lucky to go through different areas of jobs in an IT industry, right? So I did some level of consulting, some level of implementation, then pre-sales activities, then business development activities, sales. I took a transfer from one of the companies that I worked with, and then I moved to Singapore. After 6 years of my life in the US, I moved to Singapore, and I was with Oracle at that time, and the whole digital revolution began to happen, right? Online, Facebook, internet, Google, all of that, and people started to think about how to make use of the data that is being populated out there. And people started to look at how to build businesses out of it. So I was looking at different options to collect data, to get intelligence, to perform better in my job. So internally within the company, when you work with larger companies, you will know how difficult it is because of the bureaucracy and the politics and the approvals and all of that. It was too difficult to get a lot of data that I needed to work with. So I would rely on external data to gather information that I could collect as intelligence, and I can use it to help me perform better. So I would write some algorithms that would help me together with one of my friends, and it started helping me. I started performing in my job, and during drink sessions in the evenings, I started hanging out with my friends, and I will share what I'm doing. I would share with a couple of my friends, and they would like it. And my ex-boss was a fantastic guy. He's one of my mentor, and he would tell me, "Hey Varun, why do you want to do it here? This is a great opportunity. Why wouldn't you get out and start a company?" Right? So that was a major turning point in my life. I began to think about it. And the thinking took a while because I had less than $40,000 in my account. I didn't even know if I can get out and I'm going to survive. And I had a girlfriend back then. So I had all kind of insecurities in my mind. So I would still think over it for 3 months, and I wouldn't start it. And I would still not do much research about startups. I didn't know startup world existed. I didn't know any of those, because when you're in a full-time job, you're really sucked into the system and you're chasing numbers, you're really busy. So, and then one fine day I woke up and I had the courage to open a website. So I would write some HTML codes. I would open a website. I would launch a name. And my ex-boss, he's the one who put the name of my company. Exactly. He's the one who gave me that name. His name is Prashant. So he gives me the name. I launched the website, and I would still work. I mean, the website is out there. I have a small product, but then I would still continue with my job. One fine day, I get an inquiry. Someone registered, and I get into a call, and within 2 days, it becomes an order. Right?
Not any kind of marketing.
Exactly. I didn't do any marketing at all. The first order was $500, and I still remember I was inside my bedroom, and I took the order and I shut down the phone, and then I started screaming with joy, and then the next day I resigned my job, and that was it. I decided to quit, and I launched the company. I registered the company in Singapore, and then I became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that's quite an interesting long story.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that. Let's talk a little bit of football. And has football influenced you? It helped you become an entrepreneur? The influence of sports?
That's a very good question. Football is everything to me. I would not become what I am today if I would not have played football. I would not live without football. It's something that is very close to my heart. And sports in general is it's a must do. It's a fantastic thing that everyone should practice. It has a lot of advantages. It'll shape up your personality. I would recommend everyone, all entrepreneurs, everyone to follow some sports. Take football as an example. It's a team game. When you play in a team game like football, you're getting into a battle, right? I was telling my brother the other day, he's an army man. Once you leave the war, the battle, the real battle, the next battle in the world is football. The way it happens on the field, because 90 minutes you're running around, you're with all your heart out, you're trying to win, you're trying to put that ball in that small goal, right? It gives you a lot of skills that is required in shaping up your personality, your career, your life in general. It allows you to become a good team player, because in a team game you are able to work with 11 different guys from different backgrounds, different family, different thinking, different ideas, different kind of skill sets, right? You are required to cope up with them, right? So it allows you to become a good team player. Fighting spirit. In a game, you win, you lose. When you lose, right, you fight back. You will not lose your heart, right? When you're 2 goals down, you still have to fight back. You have to finish the game. You fight back and you score, you win back the game, right? So the fighting spirit. If you lose, it's a setback. The ability to face rejections and setbacks, right? Likewise, there are confidence, right? You become confident. You become physically so powerful. There are so many good advantages that you would get when you engage yourself in sports, and most importantly, healthy lifestyle, right? You would if you allow yourself into some level of sports, certainly you would build all these qualities. And to me, football is the only game that I've played, and now I play golf primarily because I have a lot of business meetings happens out of golf, and golf is a fantastic game too, because you're always competing against yourself, and you need to put that small ball in the small hole, and you have to be a lot of patience, and you need to have a lot of concentration as well. It is really helping me, but just one sentence: football is everything to me, and without that, I would not have become what I am. And I still would some days I would still think that I feel so sad that I couldn't become a football player. Yeah.
But you still play the game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I play about 3 games a week. The other day I got a chance to go back to Central Stadium where I grew up, and I played with my friends, and it was a fantastic experience. I played 3 games a week in Singapore. Wherever I go, I pack my soccer shoes, and I have small groups I signed up with everywhere, and I play, and I try to remain fit and enjoy the game. I go to Europe to watch the games. I follow Barcelona. I'm a big fan of Barcelona, so I make a couple of trips every year there to watch the games. I go to Chelsea, watch a couple of games there. So it's going on. Yeah, my football life is very, very active.
Good. So last time we had the CEO of Killer Startup Mission, and we were talking about how to start a startup using the facilities that's provided by Killer Startup Mission. So this time we need to focus on how to start a startup from the perspective of an entrepreneur. And you have rightly said about the idea, that you had the idea while working in a company and you really saw a market need. Could you please explain about that idea and what exactly was the first product that you developed?
Yeah. So if you look at marketing in general, right, you are trying to create awareness of a specific product or services that you want to sell. So you need to reach out to the right audience to market your product, to increase awareness of your product. So there are a number of ways in which you would do that. You would have TV ads, and you would have email campaigns, you would have digital ads, you would have a number of channels in which you would do your product marketing. Now, the way in which it comes to consumers is in a way that it's being pushed on to us, right? So that has been the legacy practice which is being followed. Now, with the digital explosion, with the internet economy that we all are living in today, we have an opportunity to identify the right buyers. We may be able to identify the right timing, and we can craft the right messages to them at the right time. Okay? This is all possible now because of the digital explosion, because of the internet revolution that is happening now. Because everyone is online, you're able to write your opinion about anything, right? So we were looking at how we can make use of all these public data available on public domains, right? And make it useful for companies to get intelligence and help them to move from push broadcasting marketing messaging to crafting the right messages at the right time to the right buyer, right? So if a buyer is indicating a problem that he's facing, or a product that is giving him trouble, or something that he's searching online and asking a question about, then you're able to recognize that buyer's behavior, and you would take that data and gives it to a company, a relevant company that sells that product, right? So it becomes so useful for that company because the company knows that, hey, he's a legitimate buyer and he's on the market looking for a product. He has some questions, or he's unhappy about a competitor product that he's using. So we are gathering all such intelligence, and we're providing that to enterprises so that they can avoid push broadcasting, which often doesn't work out, and they can switch to targeted messaging, right? So we started off with B2B enterprises sector. So we are not a consumer company. So we were looking at how we can help businesses to sell their products to other businesses, right? So the fundamentals that are required for that is, number one, obviously the right buyer. Within a company, you have a number of departments. You have IT department, you have finance, you have accounting, you have manufacturing, HR, marketing, sales. So we have to identify the right party contact within an organization. And then we need to match that with the right product that fits into that buyer, right? So we would identify a number of products that could be targeted to sell within these departments, right? So we would start with one specific industry, the technology industry, because I worked in that industry for 10 years. So I had the domain knowledge. So we would start with that industry. We would build a product which is called Tech Sales Cloud, which is a technology sales intelligence platform on the cloud, which allows us IT companies to look at where IT investments are being made, who are the key buyers, where IT contracts are expiring, right? And we would give that data to technology companies. So that's how we started. So instead of building a large product which caters into a mass audience, our approach was slightly different. We selected one industry based on the domain expertise that we had, and we thought we could test it out. And we wouldn't still do any marketing. We would build that product, and then we would speak with a number of customers in a very tricky way, which I could explain probably in a bit. So the key takeaway from that question, the first product that we built, was the approach that we took. Building a product based on the domain expertise that you had, the knowledge that you had, the business network that you had, and then you do a testing approach. We didn't even go after fundraising or any of those. Our first approach was to reach out to a number of customers and do a specific messaging, which is we would tell them, hey, here is a problem that is being commonly faced by the industry, within your industry, and here is a solution that we are building. Can you share your feedback, right? So that approach really worked out. We shortlisted about 20 companies, and 9 of them responded. 6 of them signed up contracts with us. So that's how we got our first customers, which I will explain in a bit what was the entire process. So that's how we built the product.
Awesome. So the next challenge is building a team. Right. I think that's the most important challenge any startup would face, to identify people who would have a shared vision like yours and then who are ready to grow with you. How did you recruit people for your company?
Yeah, it's a long process that we went through, because I didn't have any experience in building a team or building any company prior to that. So I committed many mistakes, especially in hiring, and that's one of the most stressful part of running a startup. I must say that. So when I built my company, I was a one-man army. Sitting in my bedroom, I was building a company, building a product, and when I got the first couple of orders, when I quit my job, 3 quarters I ran as on my own, and we had about $250,000 in revenue coming in as a one-man company, and I was really confident about what I'm doing. And I began to hire some freelancers in the Philippines and a couple of guys in California. And I asked them to help me with UI and certain layers of the product. Because I wanted to make it into a Silicon Valley good-looking product, and I was not really good at the UI layer. So the guys would help me with building the product. Meanwhile, I would continue my approach, talking to people, asking feedback, how to improvise the product, signed up a few contracts. And then some of these freelancers would become full-time employees of the company. I would absorb them, and they're still with me. Some of them are really good guys. And then I would go to Manila, because I was in Singapore. So the first preference was go to Manila. I would set up a small center there. I would hire 5 people there. I would start the operations there. And then I would come to our very own Technopark, and I would meet with the CEO of Technopark. I would go to meet with Startup Village, KSUM. I would meet with a number of people. I would introduce myself to them, my company to them, my idea to start operations here in Kerala. And then I would come here, and then I was not that confident to get it going because I was confused. And one fine day, my brother he was working in the army, and he would tell me, look, I would retire. And back then he was working for UN. And he would say, look, I'll come and help you. And he would leave army job, retire, take voluntary retirement. He would come, and he would put this idea into my head that why don't we make this into a social impact business model, right? Because a lot of kids are not getting jobs because they don't have 90 percentile marks. They don't have 80 percentile marks. It's not because they're not smart. Probably they have not been stimulated or they haven't got the opportunity yet. And I was one among them. Many years ago, I was one among them. So he would tell me that, why don't we start in the very own town that we grew up, right? And I was not confident because I'm not running a mom and pop shop. It's an international company today. I had customers from the US.
So was connectivity an issue there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first thing that we checked was whether we are able to get connectivity. And we looked around, we saw ICICI Bank open there, Indian Bank open there. We knew there is connectivity. So we would go to BSNL, we will talk to them, and they would give us a lease line. And we made some profits, revenue was coming in. So we decided to buy a property instead of renting. Because I had a lot of quotes from Technopark. We had Startup Village. So it's all on rent. We have to pay rent. And we had some money and we thought, why couldn't we go and buy a property? And we bought a building in the village, in the town that we are at, right? So because the money was there, so we went and bought a building. We upgraded that building, a tourist home. We converted that into an office and we would hire 5 people. And that's an interesting story. So we would get the connectivity. We would buy a power backup system. We would start the operation. But before we starting the operations, we put up an advertisement on the newspaper that we are hiring. We get 0 resumes, right? And we were kind of wondering why, right?
Me too.
Yeah. So, and second time we decided to put a larger advertisement on the newspaper in the mainstream daily all over Kerala. This time we would get about 12 resumes, right?
You were looking for BTech graduates?
Yeah. Computer science graduates, people with a couple of years of experience. And these people would come up for interview. 9 of them would show up out of the 12. And they come with their parents. And instead of me interviewing them, they started interviewing me, right? The parents, like, is this a real company? How can you start a company in a small town? Are they going to get salaries? Are you going to shut down in 2 months? These are the questions that I faced. So, and I was really desperate. And I already spent 3 months and my brother is getting frustrated, and we were not able to scale the operations. We needed people badly, and 5 of them took the chance, and we hired them, and they gave references. Today we have nearly 35 employees in the same space. So that's how we started our office. So we got connectivity, we got good talent, we got people returning from Pune, Bangalore, different cities. They're coming back from all over Kerala. People are coming there. And we became an example there. We started the first IT company in a rural town in Kerala, probably one of the very few in India, right? And we created jobs in a small town, as a result of which we are contributing back to the economy there. I can see a lot of progress happening there. When I started the company, it was a very dry office. Today, I can see cars parked in front of my office. I can see bikes. I can see them wearing good clothes. It's a major impact in that small town. And there is a lot of positive energy. And, students from nearby colleges are coming there to do internship. So it's a fantastic thing. And I think what we need to look at is, also kind of expanding the startup culture, entrepreneurship culture, all of these into smaller rural areas. It should not be restricted to larger IT parks in the cities. It doesn't have to be IT. It can be in any other industry. But that's the story of our hiring process, how we started off. And the hiring process, we interviewed these people. They joined. Then we started to get references. And today we follow a very plain, simple, straightforward process whereby if somebody is reaching out to us to get a job, we don't care about whether they have a 90 percentile mark. We don't care about whether they went to fantastic, big, IIT or big college. We don't care about which church they go to, which family they are from. We don't care about any of those. What we care about is what they can do for us. That's the only question that we ask.
Please tell us about that 10-day trial period, because I think that's a wonderful model, and it's a wonderful model for a lot of startups to replicate. Could you please tell us about
exactly.
the 10-day?
It's from the learning, actually. Initially I tried to hire a lot of people, and when you meet friends and meet people, there's a lot of excitement because it's a startup, it's a growing company, it's a profitable company. So it's an international company, so they all get excited. They have a lot of excitement, but out of that excitement, they tend to forget a lot of reality in terms of their ability to deliver and to match with the culture, because you always define a culture and then you hire people to that culture. So they come in and they could not deliver, and it was a difficult period in my life to build a team. So later on, I learned a practice that I'm no longer conducting interviews. I'm no longer doing tests. If somebody wants to work with me, they should come and tell me what they can do for my company. They should do their homework, understand my business, and what they can contribute. And then I will tell them, okay, if this is what you want to do it for 10 days or 15 days. Take a month and try it out, right? You can do it from home, or you can come to my office and do it. You can do it from wherever you want. Try it out and see how you feel. And it allows me to understand the person better. At the same time, the candidate also get a feel of the company, get a feel of the culture, and see how both parties are comfortable. And that's how we start. So that's the way it's really working now. And I don't have a lot of attrition. It's less than 3% maybe. I don't have attrition. As you can see, my initial team is still here. Most of them are still here. So that practice is something that I would recommend to try to all the other startups. Don't get too excited when you meet friends or when you meet people at startup events and all of that. Make sure that you test them out in a friendly way so both parties get more comfortable, and you go from there.
Yeah, this has happened to me too, because we are a startup, we hire people, and it becomes so messy when you have to let people go. But if we have an understanding initially that it's going to be a 10-day trial period, and then we'll decide on whether you are on board with us or not, it's a fantastic model. And I really hope students and startups here take the right message from that model. Going on, we talked about the idea, the team. You do have offices abroad, I believe, in the US and Ireland, Philippines. So you built a team, freelancing team was there with you initially, and then you built a team in Kerala. How did you start offices in the international market?
So first of all, building an international startup from day one is not something which is very common, and it's tough. It's not that easy. I was sort of forced to do that because I did not raise capital. So I was looking for candidates that I can work with in different parts of the world that is economically viable to me, that is reasonably priced for me. So obviously I looked at Philippines and India as an option because I get good quality skills at a lower cost, and that was one of the reasons which I went into those countries. I started the international office first in Singapore because I was based there, and they have fantastic startup policies there.
I think it's rated as the #1 country in the world for ease of doing business. Does anybody want to take a guess on India's ranking on ease of doing business? 130? You're almost right. So as an entrepreneur, could you please give, it's 130 I guess, but I think the recent ranking is 134. So there's just 195 countries, I guess. So we're pretty much way in the bottom. As an entrepreneur, do you suggest some things that could be possibly taken as a recommendation for the governments to improve the ranking in terms of ease of doing business?
Yeah, we shouldn't work towards increasing the ranking. It should be, again, the number that we talked about. We all are from here. It's our responsibility, collectively our responsibility to change that, and it's already started, right? So whatever 134 number is changing, absolutely, and we are contributing towards that. We have good policies coming in. We have KSUM here. We have Startup India, Makeup India. We have a lot of campaigns that is happening right now. There is a revolution that started within startup ecosystem in India, so that's going to change. I'm very confident about that. At the same time, there are a number of areas that we can bring about change within our system. And one thing, though, that I would really recommend is to build a innovation thinking entrepreneurial culture across grassroots level, right? If you look at all the startup ecosystem here, the whole world is doing well, right? Everyone is behind startup. So we are also sitting on the same boat, and we are just going with the ride. Now, why do you think all the quality companies are coming up from, or more number of companies are coming from US or Europe or some other parts of the world? it is not only the infrastructure and the ease of doing business, it's also the culture, right? Now, we all are taught in a system where we need to get good marks, education, look for a job, get a good job, and settle down. Versus, along with the education and the job desire that we have, we also need to look at building a culture that allows us to be curious about problems that are being faced by people and try to find solutions to those problems. And those solutions will become companies, and that will create entrepreneurs. So that culture needs to be built. So when we are in school, when we are in colleges, right, we have Science Fest, right, we could look at how we will innovate small solutions for problems that are being faced by human beings, how we can increase the human advancement, and we can contribute towards that by bringing innovations, right? So that thinking needs to be done. One of the practices that we could follow, we have music classes in school, we have drawing classes in school. Why don't we have entrepreneurship classes, right? Once a week, we could have a period that is dedicated for students to come and present some innovations, right? It could be smaller problems, solutions for smaller problems that they're facing in their neighborhood, right? And last 10 minutes of the program, they could still talk about some case studies, right? So that's the practice that we can follow. So my viewpoint on that is, along with building startup ecosystem, startup infrastructure like KSUM or Startup Village or any of those, we also need to look at how to create a culture that would contribute to quality startups into those infrastructures that we're building. And that's the way we need to build the ecosystem. So that's how some of the practices that I'm seeing in Silicon Valley and Singapore. And Singapore is a country which is very, very open to entrepreneurship. They have fantastic tax-friendly policies and programs running there. Now, coming back to the point of starting offices, we started the office in Singapore, India and Philippines, obviously for availability of talent at reasonable pricing. And our product was primarily sold at European and Western markets, US market. So we needed to have a local presence there. So we opened sales offices there. How do we manage to do that? I spent a lot of time in each of these countries, and by hiring the right talent, right, you define the culture first, and you be very transparent and communicative with your employees, and you bring them to the same goal, as a united team, and then you give them responsibilities, and that's the way you are expanding your offices, and that's how we've expanded.
You've talked about solving issues, and I think it's equally important to look at commercializing those solutions, which brings us back to you finding your customers. I hope you must have used your own in-house B2B solution to reach out to your ideal customers. How did you get your first customer, and how did you sustain and grow businesses with the existing customers?
The first customer, as I told you, was an inbound lead, and it resulted in a $500 deal, and that was the best part of my career.
Are you still doing business with them?
Yeah, of course, yeah. They've been bought over by Infosys now, so it's become a larger contract right now. But what we did was, instead of sending hundreds of emails and doing marketing, the approach that I took was to test with people from the industry about this problem, whether this is a problem that they really face, and the solution that I'm building is able to sort of address that problem. So instead of sending salesy emails, we would shortlist about probably 100 companies, and we would identify the key buyers that we want to sell into, and we would send an email to them or call them, and we would ask them, hey, this is a problem that we all face in our career. We want to check with you, is this something that is relevant to you? And if so, here's a solution that we're building. Can you please take a look at it and tell us if this is something that can address that problem? Can you share your feedback, how we can improvise it? So that approach gave us our initial contract, because a lot of people looked at it, and the key takeaway on that approach is we knew who are the key buyers of our problem, right, our product, and we know who are the key people who are facing these problems. And we approached them with this problem statement and a solution statement in a feedback manner. And they were like, hey, this is something that we're facing, and okay, these are some areas that you need to look at improvising your product, right? And they started giving us feedback. And some of them signed the contract, and that's how we got our first customer. So the approach would vary from industry to industry, market to market. But one sole principle that I would recommend is to identify the right buyers of your product and try to approach them with a problem statement rather than talking about your product and how good your product is, how good your team is, how fantastic how many awards you got, how fantastic your company is, your addresses in Technopark. You need to avoid all of that, because buyers, it doesn't matter. We live in a very flat world today. It doesn't matter where you come from, where you're sitting. What matters is whether you have a product that solves a problem. End of the day, that is the only thing that matters.
Could you please tell us about your biggest client and contract with the biggest client?
Yeah. We've got about 12 of the world's largest Fortune-listed companies as our customers. You name it, HP, Dell, IBM, EMC, most of them are our customers. One of this particular account that we got a $1 million contract was it started in Singapore. We've got an inbound inquiry from Japan, and they were struggling with their marketing campaigns in Japan market, primarily because of the language barriers and the difficulty to collect data and things like that from public domains because of the language expertise required. So we helped them with that Japan market, and they were really happy about it. And they gave the reference to China because that's another complicated market. And the contract got extended into China market. So from there, we did a good job there. Our product did well. And from there, they got the reference to Singapore. So through that, it became an APJ contract, Asia Pacific Japan contract. And the APJ team gave the reference to HQ in the United States. And within 6 months, it became a $1 million contract. And they're one of our best customers. They're one of the world's largest technology company. So the key takeaway on that is customer reference, right? If your product is good, if your product is getting solving the problems, it is helping customers to solve their problems and improve their business processes, then obviously it works. And they gave the internal references, and we've got a fantastic customer on board, and we take that case study into a lot of other customers, and we won a lot of businesses from global enterprises today.
Awesome. We have a lot of friends from academia joining us today, and there's a lot of buzz around big data analysis and cloud computing. If you could please tell us about the emerging trends that we should look out for in terms of employment, in terms of starting a startup in those domains, it would be great. Yeah. Emerging trends.
Absolutely. So see, gone are the days that we say, learn. So these days people say that you learn, you unlearn, and relearn, right? Because we live in a very fast-paced economy where innovations are coming in, and therefore you need to keep updating yourself about the latest trends and challenges and innovations that is happening in the industry. Within the technology industry, cloud computing is one area that is really kicking in. There's a lot of trending going on. In the olden days, we had on-premise software implementations. And there's a trend happening now. Companies are moving away from on-premise implementation to cloud subscriptions. So it's same like how you subscribe to a magazine, where you do a monthly subscription and you get the magazine. You subscribe to a software and then you use that as a service, right? So today you have different solutions like HR, payroll, finance and accounting, you have ERP. All these solutions are available, including business intelligence and analytics, available on the cloud that allows startups like ours to get started quickly. You don't need a physical space. You don't need a lot of capital budget to buy infrastructure like servers and storage systems to deploy these systems. You don't need to have upfront huge cash to buy the software. You don't need to have hundreds of consultants from IT services companies to coming in and implementing the software. You could just subscribe to software and you could start using it from day one, right? So cloud computing is one of the latest technology trend that's happening. So that's somewhere I would recommend strongly that students needs to look at and learn more about it. There are hundreds of jobs that are being populated in that industry. Lots of businesses are coming in because of cloud computing. Likewise, big data. If you look at big data as a word, the meaning itself is in that word, big data, large volume of data, right? Public data, right? So businesses accumulate large volume of data within their internal systems by doing a lot of transactions. Likewise, through our social media platforms and public, domain platforms, there's so much of data being populated. So, and this data is information, right? How to make use of this information, right? How to write algorithms that would go and fetch all of this data and then look for intelligence that can be used in different departments of the business and improve your business processes, right? So it's a fantastic area, and there are lots of innovation and new startups coming up in that space. You have predictive analytics, you have big data intelligence, big data analytics. You have lots of areas where you could get your skills ready and then get jobs. And so definitely I would recommend all of you to look into some of those areas and get yourself skilled while you're at college. You could go into a private institute and get yourself trained. Certainly, from a business enterprise perspective, you could look at these two areas.
Okay. Let's talk about funding. I believe you have not yet received any external funding, or I do not know if you've sought out for external funding. And also, you do not have a co-founder on board. That's again one thing the investors are looking at. So could you please comment on those two, funding and co-founder?
Sure. So
in the team,
raising capital is a different ball game. It's something that it's a very tricky situation. You need capital to build a business. You need capital to market your business. You need capital to expand. With me, it so happened that from day one, I began to get orders, and I had good customers, repeatable customers, and I had a story of a small company that is making revenue, that is growing steadily, growing internationally, good customers on board. So I was, for the first 2 years, I was not aware of funding, or I was not educated about startups and the business tactics that I'm supposed to follow, because I was a one-man army, so I didn't get much time to look into all of those. Incidentally, I was pulled into an event in Singapore, startup event in Singapore, and that's when I realized that there's a startup ecosystem. There is a lot of hype going on around. It was one of the events that I got exposed to. It's one of the first events that I got exposed to.
There are a lot of reasons why you should attend startup right events.
Absolutely. That's why I said first. It's a global institution. It's a great event. I would start reading about it. I would go around co-working spaces. I would meet with some of the investors. We had a couple of offers to raise money, and sometimes the terms are a bit difficult to accept. Sometimes the culture, the way of dealing is not something that you're comfortable with, and it takes a lot of time and effort as well to raise money. You need to have a lot of networking going on. You need to invest in a lot of time to connect with people and build your stories and build a lot of documents and things like that. So, and also I didn't have a co-founder. I was rejected by a number of investors because of the same reason as well. But my single focus was to maintain my customers, continue innovating my product, and building the team.
At any point, did you try to bring a co-founder on board?
Of course, yes. Right now I have a female co-founder. She's doing a fantastic job. She's based out of California. I met her through an event, and she became a customer, and eventually she becomes a co-founder of my company. And that is one of the best decisions that I've ever made. So having a co-founder, I've gone through both the phases, right? Running the company as a single founder, I was lonely, I was alone, I didn't have anyone to share things with, and I had a lot of pain. But then I didn't give up, because I come from a village. I had a lot of roughness in my childhood, so I wouldn't give up. And I was born in a communist family. I could never imagine giving up. So obviously, Obviously, I wouldn't give up. But later on, once my co-founder came in, it was a fantastic thing because I could see new, fresh ideas coming in, and all of a sudden, I have someone to rely on, someone who could share my values and my culture, and someone who would take on things on behalf of me. And it's a fantastic thing. So having a co-founder is a fantastic thing, but don't wait for the perfect co-founder. You have an idea and you believe in it, you can build a product, just fucking get started with it. Don't wait for the perfect day to get a co-founder and get funding and everything to fall in place. From day one, get started. That is the best piece of advice that I can give you from my own experience.
Okay. It's March, and with the International Women's Day and all, I really wanted to bring a female speaker, but you know what, I'm so glad you're here. 70% of the workforce of Corporate 360 is women, and most of them are here. I'm so happy to see you here today. Was this a conscious decision to bring on board more women into the workforce?
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. It was certainly a conscious decision. It was purposely done. There are a number of reasons to that. One of the important things that I learned from my upbringing, the way my parents raised me, the way my grandfather raised our entire family, was to give importance to education and how to support women, because they are the ones who are sisters and become mothers, and they are the ones who are responsible to raise children in future, and they leave a huge impact to the next generations and the world. And then I had some personal experience that also kind of drove me towards making a conscious decision. When I grew up, we had a lot of debts in the family, and we had a lot of problems, primarily because my parents sent us to school, and back then it was 25 rupees per month and school fees, and they couldn't afford that. So my mom had to borrow a lot of money from people and send us to school and all of that, and we had lots of issues from people whom she borrowed money from, and then I would see people coming and knocking the door every day, trying to get the money back, and my mom running for cover, hiding. She couldn't pay back. Sometimes she would, go behind the house and things like that. And towards the end of it, she would make a very difficult decision because she couldn't face people, and she didn't give up. She would just leave, right? So that's something that made a huge impact in my life, and I don't want to see any woman facing that in my life, and I don't want to have that happening. So I'm trying to solve that problem in smaller ways I can. So I'm hiring more women, more girls, because I want to help them. I want to make sure that they are well informed. I want to give them good awareness about their responsibilities towards the world, the importance of education, the importance of building a career, the importance of building a future. So it's a conscious decision, and I'm so proud about my company. We have about 70% of our employees are women force.
All right, you're also involved with a lot of initiatives on giving back to the society, such as giving scholarship for students, building schools, giving ambulances. Also your smart worker initiative within the company. So what has motivated you to do such initiatives within the company and also outside the company, and be actively involved with giving back to the society?
Yeah, very powerful question. It goes back to the experiences that I've had. I didn't have a mentor in my life, and I always missed that. So I made a lot of mistakes. And my mentoring or my mentorship was learning from my mistakes, right? The upbringing that I had, the culture in my family, and the things that they believed in was very helpful in doing whatever social work, smaller ways that I'm doing. the definition of success, if you look at, right, most of the people work towards getting good education, get a good job, make a lot of money, wear good clothes, eat good food, get a nice home, get a beautiful girlfriend or a handsome boyfriend, drive the best car in the world, and travel around the world, get acceptance and status from the society, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, the definition of success has a slight extension to it, which is giving back or helping others. Success gets completed only when you achieve all of those things and then you help others. You make a difference in other people's lives. And this is something that was inserted in our culture, in our family. I earlier said, my grandfather was the founder of the Communist Party in my village. And even though we didn't have any money at home, I could see him going around and helping people, right? And he would look after my grandma. She would run a chai kada, I hope you guys know. It's a tea shop. And she would try to raise her children. My grandfather would go around and helping people. So we all were raised seeing that. And that's something that really influenced me. So that's one of the reasons why I may have, I'm very open about, some of the political alliances that I have as well. The way in which I would look at that is, we all need to look at becoming successful in life and use that success to help others, right? And then that's when your success becomes completed. So because of that culture, right, the moment we started making money, we're becoming profitable. I go into a lot of these events. Most of them would tell me, you need to raise capital, or you need to use your profit, reinvest that money back in the business and scale it, go global, become a $1 billion company. And I took a very conscious decision. I became financially independent. I don't need money anymore. And my company is stable. I have contracts. I have a good product. I would rather continue with my current growth. I would scale in a reasonable way. At the same time, I want to start helping people today. I don't want to wait to become a $1 billion company and after 20 years come back and start contributing. No, because I will lose those 20 years then. So many people will lose their opportunity then, right? So we would make a conscious decision that from today itself, right, we're profitable. We would start contributing a certain percentage of our profit and we will start helping people. So I go back to the same village that I grew up, and obviously I'm attached to that place. We would start with giving scholarship to a number of children, and we would take 7 students from that village. We will employ them in our company. We're giving them training. We're giving internship. Students who are studying in colleges, they would come after their college time, evenings, weekends, they come to our office, they get trained. By the time they finish their education, they would get a part-time job certificate, or they could get trained so they can get full-time jobs in the company, or they are prepared to get a full-time job. In that village, there is no hospital. We have to travel about 20 miles to come to a near hospital. It's a big problem. So we bought them an ambulance. We employed a full-time driver there. I mean, should I wait for 20 years to become a $1 billion company to do that? By the time, there will be like 200 people would have been dead traveling in a bus trying to get to hospital. So we would go and buy an ambulance, and our company runs it. And the school there, the same school we're talking about, did not have a school bus. Kids would walk to the school nearly up to 2 miles a day, regardless of the weather situation. So we'll employ a driver and a helper, and we buy a school bus and we run it. And if you look at, it's all, productive, impactful work that we are doing, and we're becoming an example there. And we are a startup, and we are able to do that. So 2 takeaways. One is obviously start doing from day one. If you have the means to help others, you must do it. Don't wait to become a $1 billion company. Second, the definition of success, obviously, we all are equally responsible to help others and make a difference.
Thank you. On that very thoughtful and inspiring note, I would like to thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. Thank you for coming.
Welcome to the Startup Grind.